Thanks for being with us. We appreciate you hanging out with us and getting all your latest headlines and interviews. And we've got one coming up here because we wanted to talk a little bit about the schools across our state that are being faced with some really difficult decisions when it comes to budgets. This is something that is just ongoing, right? Every year we hear about this and the tough decisions that have to be made. Well, we wanted to take a closer look at, why this is happening, how severe is it, and what that budget process actually looks like. A lot of us have kids in school, and I don't know that I've ever sat down to look at the process as all of these different folks, the teachers, administrators, school board, community members, everybody's got an opinion about how this should go. So joining me now is Collin Beachy, who is the school board chair for Minneapolis Public Schools. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. All right, so we know that all districts are not the same. We want to focus on your district. It's looking at an estimated $75 million budget shortfall. So I think first question people might want to know is, how did we get here?
Well, I think that there are a lot of things that you can look at. And I think that the first thing really is that if you look over the last several decades, that there's really been a chronic underfunding of the schools by the state. And most of the school districts around the state, the majority of their funding comes from the state. And so it's just kind of been historically underfunded. And so a big thing too that sort of happens, I used to be a special education teacher here in Minneapolis. And so, a special ed department takes up a good third of your budget, most for a lot of people. And so, but the revenue coming from the state is not keeping up with the amount of costs and the amounts of expenditures that have to go there. And so there's this cross subsidy that is a gap between what the expenditures and what we're getting from the state. And so then that needs to come from people's general funds, and that kind of eats into a little bit of what they're able to do and provide for their students.
Okay.
So that's really one thing. And then I think as things that are continuing, there's a drop in enrollment, which also kind of takes away some state dollars. But there's other things too. Inflation is up, and that affects a school district just like it affects anybody who's out buying groceries. It affects our buses having to buy gas and all of that. And so all of those things are adding up, and it's just kind of putting people in a tight spot.
Yeah. Can I ask you just, people might be wondering any sort of threats over federal cuts to schools. I mean, is that something that would ever, trickle down to you in what way?
Yeah, so that again, it would depend on like what level of cuts that they would. But the federal government provides about 8% of our budget, and so that would still be a significant amount of money that would affect us. But right now at this point, in terms of everything that's going on, a letter was sent to the Department of Education, and so right now we are in communication with them. We're talking with the Attorney General just to make sure that we're still following state policy, still following the guidelines, and we'll make some changes or moves if something like that comes up. But for right now, we're still feeling pretty good about where we're sitting.
Okay. Can you kind of help us understand just kind of a budget negotiations cuts 101 here? At what point are you guys in the process? Are you starting to identify areas that are going to need severe cuts? And if so, what might those be?
Sure. So one of the first things that happens when we get the money from the state, and then we sit down and we distribute and allocate that money to the school. So then they have sent back now to us what it is that they need to have funded at their schools. And then we take a look at then how we're going to fund our departments and what we're going to have to remove, or what we can make sure that we're not getting anything taken away from the students. And so then at the point where we're at now is that everything is sort of wrapping up. And so we've gotten all the details, we've gotten all the information that we need from the schools and from the superintendent. So the policy or the finance committee just last week had our first reading, and we're sending it now to the full board for the board to have their final discussions on this. Okay. And we'll make that final decision by I think June 15th. Around that time, we are required by the state to make sure that we have a balanced budget by the end of June.
Okay. What are the parents telling you? What are community members telling you about their concerns, their wishes? What's their feedback been?
Yeah, the first thing is that if you go back a couple months back to the election, we really appreciated that the people approved the tech levy for the school district. And what that did for us was that it didn't go towards new technology. What it did was just to keep us to maintain at the current levels that we are at. And so what we're really hearing from parents right now, the biggest concerns are really class sizes. And so we are taking a look at how we are doing our predictable staffing and making sure that these class sizes are going to be lowered. You know, having 30 kids in a kindergarten class is just, it's difficult for a teacher. And we all recognize that. There are 3 teachers on the board. So we certainly know what it's like to try and have a classroom when it's that full. So that's really one of the biggest things that we're hearing about. And you know, there's our special education department is something else that we are looking at to do some reforms there that I think will be a little bit more responsive to our families.
Yeah, we did a deep dive a couple of years ago on sort of special education in Minnesota schools, and I don't know if this still holds true, but at that time we were looking at some statistics with some folks from special education, but also, you know, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists who were saying that in Minnesota we have, I don't know, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm unable to hear you now, so sorry about that. But I'm just gonna, as long as you can hear me, that's the most important thing. We came across some data that showed that in Minnesota, we at that time had the highest number of students in some sort of special education program, whether it be IEP or 504, something like that, needing special services than any other state in the country, which was sort of an incredible stat. And it sounds like that is a big portion of this budget. Can you just tell us a little bit more about kind of the struggle there to meet the need and bridge those gaps?
Yeah, you know, I think that in special education, really the biggest thing that helps as a teacher is that you need bodies, you know, so we need people to be making sure that we are having the caseloads are matching what it is that is required by law and also required in our teacher contract. And so, you know, some of the struggles that we have there is to just, again, maintain that we've got enough teachers that are able to cover everything in their caseloads while still maintaining all the due process work and things that they have to do. And so, you know, we're looking at trying to make sure that how we're restructuring some things that are going to be a little bit, as I said, more responsive to our special education teachers. And, you know, it is a big part of our budget. And, you know, I think that at this point, though, the way that things are looking for us, I think that from last I heard that we are at the point where we do have enough staff to be covering the students and that predictable staffing. Okay.
And sorry, I am able to hear you again, and I missed the first part of your answer.
Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Did, yeah,
well
I heard the last part. Okay. So thank you. Can we also address sort of, you mentioned drop in enrollment. Any plans to sort of consolidate, or what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah. So where we are at right now in Minneapolis is we had a transformation process that we called the district transformation. And so there were 4 steps that we had the district, the superintendent and her team to work on. And so we're now at the final point here, which is step 4, which is finalizing this budget. And so we have all of this information. And so we're going to be looking forward now in June at a retreat as to what our next steps are and what processes that we're going to have to take. Now, there are a lot of questions that people have about, you know, are schools going to close? Are we going to consolidate? You know, I can just say this, everything is on the table. We're looking at everything. And so, but we have not gotten to that point just yet, but we do know that is certainly a possibility. But first thing that's first is that, again, we need to take a look at everything. And when we're talking about enrollment decline, it really has more to do with, or not, I shouldn't say more to do, but something that's included in this is when you look at the birth rate decline. And that's just not something that's happening in Minneapolis. It's something that's happening not just in the state of Minnesota. I was just at a workshop in Atlanta, and one of the conferences I went to was about declining enrollment, and it's just the birth age population is dropping. And so we have a situation right now where even if every student in Minneapolis went to Minneapolis Public Schools, we would still be seeing a declining enrollment. So, we have in June, we're going to be hearing from a demographer who is, the superintendent brought one on board to take a look at some of the trends and things that are going to be happening, because that's going to also need to inform our decision making moving forward.
And how about those who look at the situation and say, well, people are leaving Minneapolis, families are moving out of Minneapolis and into the suburbs, right, because they don't want to be in Minneapolis for whatever reason. Is that a perception, or has that been the reality?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think that sometimes one thing that I find a little frustrating is it's just a lot of the negativity that sort of gets kind of directed towards Minneapolis, and I sort of think it's been a kind of a recurring thing for quite a while. I mean, I started my teaching career down in Bloomington, and I remember kind of hearing negative things about Minneapolis, yet I became a teacher there. I fell in love with the place, and now I'm, sitting on the school board. And so, but yeah, we are. I mean, Minneapolis, you're seeing, especially like downtown, you're seeing a lot of growth, and we're seeing a lot, but they're not families who are coming in here. And so we do have a new intergovernmental committee that we've created, where we're working with the city, we're working with the state, we're working with the county. And so we are talking about some of these things. And one of the biggest issues too is housing. And sometimes families aren't able to afford the housing that's here in Minneapolis. And so we do have a stable home, stable schools program that we are working on with the state, with the city. And but yeah, it is for whatever the reason that families are leaving Minneapolis, and of course it's going to have an effect on our population.
So some districts obviously turn to referendums. They ask residents for more money. And forgive me if you've mentioned this already, but when would that become part of this conversation?
Not yet. Again, this is something that I think that we're going to have a lot more information in the next couple of months, where we're going to be able to have to make those kind of decisions. I think that we, once this budget is balanced, we're going to be able to start, because negotiations are already starting. And so we're already going to be starting to take a look forward at what some of the projections are for next year, which will also inform how we're going to have to act moving forward here in the next couple of months.
Okay. Do you think you'll ever get to a point? Is it ever realistic to say that a budget will be balanced and will be fine, and we don't have to face this steep of a hill to climb? Or is the reality that you're always going to be, having to make really, really tough decisions every budget cycle?
Well, I certainly hope not. I mean, I was I kind of had a little speech at the last board meeting and about this. It's just, I feel like we can't be doing this year after year after year. And so, the new superintendent who's coming in, Dr. Sales Adams, is doing a fantastic job. And so this is just not easy right now, but the end goal of this thing is to try and stabilize this district in whatever way we can. And so, there's just a lot of work that we have to do moving forward. And my belief is right now, I think that we're on the right track. I really do. It's going to take a little bit of time to still get this thing turned around when you have a district this large. But I think that we're moving in the right direction. And my hope is that at the end of all of this, we'll be starting to put this district on a healthier path where, no, we aren't going to have to be doing this every year. Some of this are some inefficiencies in how we're doing things in our own district that have been identified and have already been addressed, that I think will also make some differences. But yeah, there's a lot of big decisions we have to make. So again, like you said, this is not something that has to happen year after year. I don't know if that's going to be the reality that school districts are facing, but and I know we're not the only ones who are going through this. I mean, the Association of Metropolitan School Districts, I think there's like 50 school districts that are in there. I mean, combined, I think there's like a $282 million shortfall for those school districts. And so, there's a lot, and most of our money, as I said, comes from the state. But I was just in a conversation with Senator Noor, and he was kind of saying the same things that we are. We're not a bank. We don't produce money. We can only distribute what we have. And so, so some of the declining money that we're getting from the state is going to affect how we're going to have to operate as well. And so, But again, I just feel like we're starting to move in the right direction and trying to be a little bit more efficient on our end, regardless of what the level of funding that we're getting.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head the next opportunity the public can have to kind of weigh in and give some more feedback to the school board?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, any of us are accessible by email, and so they can certainly go ahead and do that. But one thing that I would encourage, I talked about the new superintendent, and as I said, there were 3 teachers on this board, and I think one thing that we were really frustrated with was the lack of transparency that we were getting from our own administration. And so the new superintendent coming in was made aware of that. We've asked for a lot more transparency. So I actually encourage people to go to our website and make sure that you check out that we have a new budget book that's on our website. And this website, and on that budget book, you're going to be able to see exactly where every single dollar is going, even including people's salaries in every department. And so if people have some questions, that's a good place to start, is to go ahead and take a look at that website. And then any board member, again, you can reach out to us by phone, you can reach out to us by email. In terms of board meetings, we do have there is time for public comments at our next meeting in May, but that's not really a time to have a discussion back and forth. That's really just kind of public comment. So if anyone does want to kind of reach out and talk a little bit more about this, that would really be the best way.
Okay. Collin Beachy, School Board Chair from Minneapolis Public Schools. We appreciate you coming on in this format and sort of a live conversation and fielding questions. And I think another maybe something we can do in the near future is have you come on and actually have some questions for you from some members of the community, parents, that kind of thing.
That'd be great.
And we can kind of just answer them in real time if you're open to that.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I appreciate that. And I do want to say before we go, I think that you and I are probably feeling the same way after this 4-1 victory in LA. Huh?
Are you a huge Timberwolves fan too?
Oh my gosh, isn't this great? Oh, this is great again.
It's just so exciting. So exciting. Those tickets just went on sale for the games here, but they are very steep. Even the cheapest seats are like $200 and some dollars. Minneapolis needs this, Target Center, that whole area. We gotta bring it. This is gonna be great. So
and if Golden State knocks off Houston here, we'll have the home court advantage. So
wouldn't that be something?
All the best.
So you're hoping for Golden State. You're hoping for a Warriors win tonight.
Yeah. Not normally, but because they normally are so good. But
exactly.
But I think we'll take them. We'll take them.
I love how every conversation as Minnesotans, no matter who you are or where you're coming from or what world you're living in, when we cross paths, sports will unite us and just open up conversations no matter what. So again, we appreciate you coming on and look forward to chatting with you again, Collin.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much too. I appreciate it.
You bet.
All right.
Take care.